Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. This is Bishop E.W. Jackson. It's a pleasure to have you all on. We really appreciate you taking time out to be with us. We've got a very special guest today. As always, somebody who's going to bring you quality information, give you some insight into what is going on. We've seen it many, many times on various news stations. I'll introduce him in a moment, but first, as always, let's open with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to be citizens of the greatest nation on earth. And Lord, our quest is to make sure that it remains so, that it remains free and prosperous, a land of opportunity, indeed the land of the free and the home of the brave. We thank you so much for the leaders on this call who are committed to fighting the good fight of faith every day. Lord God, give us more leaders like our guest speaker today who love our Constitution, love our Judeo-Christian values and our way of life, and are committed to preserving it. And Father, we thank you so much for this congressman and for the work that he does to serve not only his district, but to serve the American people. And Lord, we just ask you to just give us another awakening in this country, to turn the hearts of our fellow citizens back toward the foundational principles that made America the greatest nation mankind has ever known. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Well, once again, folks, thanks so much for joining us. Our guest today is someone that you've seen, I know, a lot and heard from a lot because he's been in the forefront of a number of important issues. Congressman Jason Chaffetz from Utah, 3rd District. He's joining us today. Congressman, thank you so much for taking the time out. We appreciate you being here to share with us. Sir, you've got 10 or 15 minutes to go ahead and talk about whatever is going on with you, with your committee, with Congress. And then we'll open it up for questions and comments. And folks, if you have a question while he's talking, press *6, and when he's done, we'll come right to you. Congressman Chaffetz, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that beautiful prayer, and thanks for the invitation to have me on. I do appreciate it. As I said to you earlier, I appreciate what you do and how you do it, and it's an honor and a privilege to be on with you. I have just a couple of quick things, but and then please, I'd prefer to do mostly question and answer. I wanted to give you an update on the status of the IRS investigation. As you know, there was some targeting of people based on their political beliefs, and that part of it is without question. We're just trying to hold people accountable, and we did something that hasn't been done successfully since the 1876, I think it was, and that is we filed papers to impeach the IRS commissioner. And the bottom line is that under subpoena, the IRS was supposed to provide Congress with documents, our lowest learner documents, under subpoena, and after that subpoena was issued, they destroyed those documents. And, that's just not the American way. People need to be held accountable. Imagine if it was the other way around. Imagine if the IRS asked you for information and you went ahead and destroyed those documents. It wouldn't work, and so nor should it. But we have gone to that extent and filed those papers. They're now at the House Judiciary Committee. I happen to sit on the Judiciary Committee, along with Trey Gowdy and a host of other people. I think there are 6 members of the Oversight Committee that are also on the Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan and Ron DeSantis and others. So we're pursuing that, and it's important because we have to, I think, at its core, remember that the government works for the people. The people don't work for the government, and we need a government that's responsible and limited in its power and its scope. At least that's my perspective and the direction that I'm coming from on this, and I think we're doing the right thing there. So I'm happy to answer more questions, but it's now in the judiciary's hands. We've met with Chairman Goodlatte, and we do hope that it continues to move forward. There is an important discussion that was going on just today. In fact, I think the hearing is probably still going on in Judiciary Committee about people's personal privacy. The expectation that I have, and I think you all should have, and that is the content of your life. If you're a suspicionless American, are you entitled to privacy? I think everybody is. I think if you are under suspicion, if law enforcement has suspicion and can articulate that, and they can go get a warrant, then maybe they can look at the content of your emails and your geolocation. But if you're an average American walking around the streets, you're under no suspicion. I don't think the federal government has any business to know what you're doing and where you are. And this situation now, I know there's tough, tumultuous times. We're praying for the people of France and those that are in tough harm's way. But I think in the United States of America, one of the big discussions we're going to have is how much privacy are we going to give up in the name of security? And I think we just need to continue to err on the side of privacy. I think that's what I want for myself, for my wife, my 3 kids. But again, happy to discuss more of that. Another thing that we mentioned before I kind of turn it over to questions is how to deal with the refugees. We're a compassionate people. Our nation is founded on the idea that people came from far and distant lands over rough waters and via the land and came and helped build America. But there's a right way to come, and then there's the not so right way to come. And we got to find that balance of being compassionate at the same time being that nation where we are protecting the homeland and the citizenry here. I do worry that there is a great deal of concern that people are utilizing the goodness that's in our hearts and using that for nefarious purposes to try to come to this land to commit, just unthinkable type of acts. We passed a bill in the House before Thanksgiving that basically said, please let the law enforcement, let the FBI, Homeland Security vet these people. If they're vetted, we can verify, we can look at their background, and then of course we're gonna have open arms, not unlimited, but of course we're gonna have some open arms. But until they can go through that vetting process, it's in the best interest of everybody to maybe hold them where they are, hopefully help them be safe and protected where they are, so that they're not in harm's way. There are, million-plus people that are now in refugee camps, and a very tough, difficult thing. No easy answer here, but I do think it is right to vet these people prior to coming to the United States. And let's also remember that this nation legally and lawfully brings in more than 1 million people each year. But we have got to address this problem. I also think simultaneous to this, we need to address the asylum issue, but we also in the refugee problem. But we've got to address the asylum program. It has been abused, and I do sit on the Judiciary Committee, as I mentioned before. Something I'm also working on, because how people are claiming credible fear and whatnot is an issue we're grappling with as well. So I'd much rather talk about what you all talk about, the oversight and government reform. We have no bounds to our jurisdiction, so we've got our fingers in just about everything because, unfortunately, the federal government has their fingers in everything. So that's
okay.
Some things right off the top of my head, but happy to answer any questions.
Well, Congressman, I'm glad you raised the issue of oversight and its broad jurisdiction or limitless jurisdiction in sense. Because, and folks, by the way, press *6 to get in queue to ask Congressman Jason Chaffetz a question, okay, or make a comment that you want him to respond to. The first question is, I think, the elephant, the 800-pound gorilla, even, if you will, in the room, which is this president. He has got now, 14 months left in office or thereabouts, and I think every person on this call and many people across the country are in mortal fear of the things that this man will do to undermine this country. And I don't know, Congressman, whether he does it intentionally or whether his thinking is just so skewed that he just doesn't understand the consequences of what he does, what he says. He's over now in Paris having some sort of climate change conference. He's going to probably come back and want to pass regulations and crack down further on coal. He killed the Keystone Pipeline. He doesn't want to talk about Islamic terror. I mean, it seems that everything he does is calculated to in some way weaken the United States of America or hurt our country. And now he wants to bring in these Syrian refugees. And by the way, with all due respect, Congress, we are a compassionate nation. But these, if only 10 of these people killed 129 French people and wounded 180, and we bring in 100 out of 10,000, what is that going to do to us? So what can Congress do to stop President Obama from continuing to carry out these policies that many of us find to be literally delusional and insane?
Well, I think you've stated a position that I've also got some concerns about. The idea that over the next 4 months, what the president may do is something that deeply concerns me. It's downright scary what he might try to implement in these last 14 months, whether it's public lands or immigration or EPA or who knows what. I mean, there's the whole gambit. And so we're going to do everything we can to limit the power of the purse. We're utilizing a tool that hasn't been utilized in a long time, and that is the impeachment process, not for the president, but for the IRS commissioner. And then we have some other pieces of legislation that we ought to pass through, the REINS Act, which are already passed out of the House of Representatives. It says if a rule is put into place that has an economic impact of $100 million or more, it has to have the concurrence of Congress. I think that number should be 0, not 100 million, but it's a good start. Again, we need the Senate to bring this up and pass it out. But we've got a president who's just blatantly gone out there and said he has a pen and he's going to use it. And that should scare everybody, no matter what side of the aisle that you're on. So people are fed up with it. I think they do want to change, and they don't want this president to just run amok like this. I think he does need to get focused on the safety and security of the United States of America. I don't know how he sets his agenda. It's a mystery to me. This is an administration, by the way. Last little comment here before we get to the next question. They actually had proposed and started going through the process to allow Libyan nationals to come to the United States to be trained on aviation and nuclear sciences. I don't know who in the world wakes up one morning and says, you know what we need more Libyan nationals trained up on nuclear sciences. They don't even have nuclear capability in Libya, and this administration is trying to open up the doors and go a new path that we haven't gone through since the 1980s to get more Libyans here to do that. I just don't get that. And meanwhile, we got our own kids who can't find jobs and would be well qualified, and they're not, granted this nice pathway. So I agree. There's just a lot of concern out there.
Folks, my fault. I just pressed question and answers. I see you all are getting in queue now. So press *6 to get in queue to ask the Congressman any questions you have on your mind. Okay, I see we're there now. Okay, Bill, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, first question comes in from Doris Atherton, phone number ending in 2548. Go ahead, Doris, ask your question.
Yes, Representative Chaffetz, appreciate you joining the call today. It seems like that we, the people, are being left out of the decision-making on self-determined governance. And my question is, where is our mutuality of agreement? Because you got people pushing laws and obligations and encumbrances on us, and we have no right to defend ourselves. Where's our, redress of a grievance?
Well, that's what's scary. So you have things like, for instance, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. One of the largest regulatory agencies put in place by the Democrats when Democrats had the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They passed that. They put it into law. It's not funded by the United States Congress. It's funded by the Federal Reserve. And so it goes beyond the reach of Congress. And really, it's your representatives that are supposed to be the voice of the people. And so when we're not able to touch those appropriations, we lose the power of the purse. We lose our ability to have the people that can go in and hold these people accountable. And so we're going to try to do some things with our oversight committee, But remember, their funding comes through the Federal Reserve, which is a pretty scary way that the Democrats are now using it as a trick to do this. Obama administration, first 4 years, 13,049 rules they put into place. 13,000. Now, it's actually less than George W. Bush, but it doesn't mean it's right. And something we've really got to curb back. These are not just technicalities. These are rules that have force of law, and then miss out on one of the fundamental things Americans are supposed to be able to do, is to be able to petition their government and to have a say through the process. And we all continue to suffer because of it.
Okay, Bill, let's go to the next question.
Go ahead, Roland.
Yes, thank you, Congressman Chaffetz, for all the work that you do. Roland Smith, Northern Virginia. My question to you is this. It seems to me that the President has committed a number of serious crimes and a number of serious failures of office, malfeasance of office. My question is, does the Congress, U.S. Congress, feel that he has not committed any impeachable offenses and therefore has not taken impeachment action against him, or is it that they don't have the will to take that impeachment action against him? Thank you.
Thank you. One of my colleagues likes to say, have you met Joe Biden? I mean, let's be careful what we ask for. In a more serious note, I don't think that there is the political will to actually pull that off. We're doing something here that I think is appropriate, and that is trying to impeach the IRS commissioner. It is one of the powers that is vested with Congress, embedded in the United States Constitution. I think that is a reasonable goal. It's something that is black and white in terms of its presence. It's black and white just in terms of the stark nature of what they did in destroying documents. So we're gonna try that first.
Okay, let's go to another question, Bill.
Okay, phone number ending in 7055. Please identify yourself and ask your question.
Yes, this is Nancy Godfrey, and thank you, Congressman Chaffetz, for spending time with us. Regarding the refugee resettlement issue, it seems like, in being the compassionate nation that we are, that we're already in the debt situation, we have the security issue and everything else, it sounds like we can do far more to help more people by leaving them in the area over there. It does not make sense to bring them over here, and I don't understand why everybody is automatically put on the welfare rolls the minute they come here either. Rather than making permanent welfare recipients, we ought to help them where they are.
Nancy, thank you. I think you're absolutely right. I just it drives me nuts when we start talking about the United Nations, because I just don't see the value of it. But there is this principle of, it's called third nation. Oh gosh, I'm missing part of the word. But it basically says, if you're in threat of imminent, your life is imminently threatened, the first country that you can get to that provides safe harbor, that's where you should stay. You shouldn't use that as a lily pad to then jump to wherever you'd like to go. That's just not a principle that we've ever adhered to. Now, the numbers are so overwhelming in Europe, they have said, well, please take some of those. I'm not saying, I think you can do more to help them where they're at. It would be ultimately less costly. It would make their country safer. So, and until these people are actually vetted, there's no reason that they should come here to the United States if they can be in a refugee camp that keeps them safe, fed, watered. And I think, from the humanitarian side, we as Americans have been very generous that way, but ultimately, you're right, it probably is less expensive. As it relates to people who come here, say, on asylum or other refugees, we have had a 90-day provision to allow people to get up on their feet so that they can get a job or get assistance. Most of that flows through state programs, so it really varies from state to state, but the federal component generally is about a 90-day help.
Okay, next question.
Okay, Jim Kuiper, go ahead.
Yes, this is Jim Kuiper from Chesapeake. When will the Congress, and especially the House of Representatives, start a declaration of war, or at least letters of reprisal or marquee?
You know, it's time that this country start calling a war, a treaty, and a terrorist. And we don't do that. So when we look at the climate change, yeah, if they want to do a treaty, then they should have to come to Congress and do a treaty. If we're going to use our military forces, there's not a clear and present immediate danger to the United States, then they should have to declare war. And if they're going to, if there's a terrorist attack, I want the President of the United States to stand up and say, that's a terrorist. But they can't even do that. So I agree with you. That's the policy. That's the direction that we should go, but that's not what this president's doing.
Okay, we've got a couple more. I think one more question. Go right ahead.
We have two more. Next question comes in from Dr. Melvin Johnson. Go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
Yes, this is Pastor Melvin Johnson from Texas, and I thank Congressman Chaffetz for being so diligent as far as his work. But my question is, I know that you have chaired many investigations, and I think they're very important. But there was one that caught my attention, is the connection between the Arab Spring movement and in the Middle East and some of our own protest movements, such as the Occupy Wall Street group, and now we have the Black Lives Matter, and they all seem to be supported by the same financial resources like George Soros and some of the others. And I can recall, I think it was former Secretary of Transportation, his son, Rayla Hood, his son was arrested in Egypt after Mubarak was overthrown. Are there any connections between what's happening over here and the Middle East Marxist socialist movement that is throughout the Middle East, but we don't really hear much about? Do you know anything about any of that? Or
very, yeah. Thank you. Very difficult to track and to understand and watch the money flow. I think we have to find the way that we can provide that type of transparency. But I can't point to a specific, as you mentioned. I wish I had more information for you, but I just don't.
Okay, let's go to the next question. Folks, one question per person. We have numbers of people who want to ask questions, so please don't get in queue for a second question. If you don't mind, please. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, next question comes in from 2548. Go ahead and ask your question.
I asked a question, the first one.
Okay, no, that's okay. Let's go to the next person then. Sorry about that.
Okay, next question comes in from 6531. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, this is 6531.
Yep.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is Erin Anderson. I live in Northern Virginia near the Pentagon. I am extremely concerned about the Syrian refugee resettlement process, especially in light of the fact that I'm hearing the president and his ilk defaulting to the way the immigration law is written, that they can actually bypass the governors and the entire state process, and they can just go ahead and bring them in without notifying the governors or the state or the citizens. Can you tell us, we Jane and Joe citizens, how we can push back on this, and how can we help you on Capitol Hill pass the necessary legislation to thwart this president bringing these refugees into this country against our will?
Well, thanks, Aaron. The first and foremost, we've got to get this provision we passed in the House. We got to get that into the president's desk and make that law that they have to certify. If we can slow that flow there, that would first and foremost, I think, be the most appropriate. We had, I think, 47 Democrats, if the numbers right, come and join us in that process and vote with us on that. So it's a very bipartisan type of approach. we got to get that bill onto the president's desk, and we did it with a veto-proof majority. So I think he's going to have a hard time pushing back on that. Federal, immigration does fall within the realm of the federal government, but I think it's reasonable that states and governors ought to have a say as to who gets put into their land and into their states, and they ought to be able to have some sort of input there in that process.
Bill, you've got a question. Did you say you have a question?
Yeah, I guess what I wanted. I'll go a little bit more generally with it, but what it appears, it seems that within Congress there's a general attitude of let's maintain collegiality at all times. But when you look at what's happening and what the White House is doing from the outside, it looks very much like they have a wrecking ball and they're taking it to the United States in every way, shape, and form they can think of. And so I can't understand why people will still give this guy the benefit of the doubt. When is Congress aware of what's really going on in the sense that this guy is destroying the country?
Yeah, you see what's happening nationally and the attitudes and the approach towards Congress. You really have to hold people accountable one at a time and who their representative is. I had somebody said something to me early on when I started here. I haven't been here that long, but they said, you can disagree, just don't be disagreeable. I do buy into the whole Margaret Thatcher sort of approach, which is win the argument first, and then you can go win the votes. And we've been such poor communicators. I think Paul Ryan, as the new speaker, will actually be real helpful in the communication. He'd be far better. I've been saying about John Boehner, we need a speaker that speaks. We're just totally absent in winning the communications war and talking about these things. You don't have to be belligerent, though. I think you can make the case and articulate the issues, but do so in a way that's also respectful. So, but just addressing the basic problems and saying, look, we understand it, we get it, and here's what we're doing about it. The House has passed more than 300 bills that are sitting in the Senate. But my guess is if we sat around the table, you'd all struggle to come up with 10 of them. I would struggle to come up with a list that was near the 300 mark, just because we're so poor in our communication, and a lot of good bills that would make a huge difference. And those are the types of discussions we need to take to the American people. So communication is where it starts, and organizations and calls like this and what you're doing on the ground, that's a great way to get the communication, the word out.
Congressman, you got time for one more question?
One more question, then I'm going to be a few minutes late, but I'm glad to be with you. Let's do one more.
Okay, go right ahead.
Call coming in from 8949. Go ahead and ask your question to the Congressman.
Yes, my name is Clyde Jones from Waldorf, Maryland. From what I understand from the Quran, it seems as refugee status is a way that Islam intends to use to dominate the world, to take over the world. And two, what about the Muslim nations? Why aren't the Muslim nations stepping up to help their brothers and sisters in Islam?
Okay, we got it. Thank you.
Tough question as to why more countries in the region aren't stepping up to do their part. I know there's some big, huge refugee camps in Jordan, for instance, but I couldn't answer that question as to why locally in these Muslim-oriented countries aren't they doing more. I was recently in Indonesia, largest Muslim country in the world, more than 100 million people. I wonder how many refugees they're taking. I don't know why that is. And again, we passed a bill out of the House fairly swiftly, bipartisan, that says vet these people, and they can't. That's the bottom line, is they can't. So, but they should, and if they can, then I think it's a different situation. So, but all we ask is that they vet them, and if not, let's find a more safe, secure place. But anyway, I think we've done this first step. Look at the bills that I've introduced in the past, for instance, on asylum reform and credible fear. there's still a lot more that needs to be done than just that one bill.
Well, Congressman, just one final word before you go, and that is fight for us. We need fighters. You've shown yourself to be a fighter. Listen, we're praying for you and standing behind you. Stand up and fight for us and try to keep this president from doing any more damage until we vote him out.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
Thank
having
you.
me on.
Thank you, Congressman. God bless
Okay.
you. Thank you. Folks, you know, we need Congress to fight. We need Congress to fight. And I'm still not sure that I'm seeing much of a fighting spirit there. The collegiality thing is a little, I mean, frankly, it's a little nauseating at this point. I mean, that to me, well, I'll be careful with the analogies, but, you know, you don't behave in a collegial fashion with that which you believe is wrong or evil or bad. You confront it and you defeat it. And so this president needs to take the same idea toward ISIS, same approach toward ISIS. He doesn't. That's the approach we've got to take toward him because what he's doing is wrong and bad and evil. And we've got to confront him and we've got to defeat him peacefully through the mechanisms of our political process. One of those mechanisms is our Congress, and they're supposed to be standing up and fighting the good fight of faith and calling him out before the American people and letting the American people know how disgusted they are with the things that he's doing. I think if they did that more, people would think more of Congress, because then they would be fulfilling their rightful responsibility under the Constitution as an independent, co-equal branch of government. But unfortunately, they often seem reticent and look, folks, I can't explain it. I just hope that Paul Ryan takes a different course, although based on what I heard him say on a 60 Minutes interview about how friendly he is with President Obama, I'm not sure. I think Boehner almost had tingles running up his leg when he took a ride on Air Force One with Mr. Obama. So that I hope that Paul Ryan doesn't catch the tingles too, and realizes this man has got to be fought, and he's got to be fought hard, because he's delusional. He's just not all there, in my opinion, because he's so narcissistic that he can only see the world through his own narrow and skewed vision, and it just does great damage to the country, and he's got another 14 months to do it. I tell you, it's disturbing. Well, let me tell you what we're doing, and then we'll end the call. We are continuing our Christian Awakening Summits. We've had 3 now here in Virginia. We're having our 4th in Northern Virginia on December the 9th. We're going to have a press conference announcing a Marshall or recovery plan for America's inner cities. I'm excited about that. We're going to have representatives from at least the Cruz campaign there. The senator couldn't make it himself, but he is endorsing what we're doing, if not in every particular, the concept of a private sector, not government-funded, private sector recovery plan for America's cities, which deals with 3 basic issues. Cultural renewal, dealing with some of the cultural pathologies that unfortunately have insinuated themselves into the inner city, like the breakdown of the family. Dealing with an economic awakening, teaching the power of entrepreneurship, of business, and instilling that in these young people. And then technical education, teaching people not just academic subjects, but teaching them actual employable skills, carpentry, plumbing, computer technology, and being computer technicians and that sort of thing. Folks, you don't have to go to college in order to earn a good living. You just need to have a marketable skill. And some of these folks who are never going to go to college need to be taught a marketable skill so they can go out and earn a living. That will provide them at least with an alternative for those who want an alternative to this, to streets and crime and drugs and gang warfare and trying to earn a living in a nefarious way. So we're going to be doing that, announcing that here very shortly next week. We're going to make you aware of it. If you are interested in coming to our press conference, we'd love to have you there. It's going to be at the National Press Club. It's going to be next Wednesday at 9:45 a.m. We'll get more out to you about it. You'll get the information that you need. In the meantime, you be praying for us, because we believe that given what's happening in the cities of this country, given the racial tension, the riots, the protests, the accusations, this insidious, cancerous Black Lives Matter movement, and it is an insidious, and it is insidious, and it is cancerous. It's horrible. It's divisive. Frankly, it's disgusting. Of course, Black Lives Matter, because all lives matter, and of course, nobody wants anybody to die at the hands of a police officer in an inappropriate, illegal way. Of course not. There's not a single American with any kind of decency, and that's the overwhelming majority. Probably 99% want to see that happen. But folks, it's more complicated than that, isn't it? Even the situation that they're protesting in Chicago right now, and it's bad. I mean, the film looks bad, and I'm waiting to see the facts come out. But even in that situation, that young man's life would have been spared if he had not been on PC out wielding a knife. Now, that is not in any way excusing the behavior of the police officer, and please don't take that. I'm not excusing it. If he's wrong, if he really murdered that kid, he's going to have to go to jail. And believe me, I'll take the key and lock it behind him. But the kid was out in the street wielding a knife on PCP. How can anybody expect those situations to end well? And when is somebody going to stand up and say, we got to teach these kids, stay off of drugs, stay in school, find a job, have a vision for your life, and then you won't have these interactions with the police that end up in loss of life and injury. Even when the police maybe are doing something wrong, you will not be within their orbit. When a police officer is a rogue, you will not be within his orbit, likely, because you're going to be home doing your homework, or you're going to be out working, or you're going to be doing something positive rather than something like that. And I know, because folks, press people infiltrate these calls, and of course they're going to say, E.W. Jackson said the kid deserved to die, and I don't believe that. I never said that. I abhor that very idea. All I'm saying is that these young people can greatly reduce their potential to be killed, and by the way, much greater potential to be killed by someone else Black in their communities, of course. Let's not forget to add that. But they can vastly reduce their potential to have something horrible happen to them if they set their lives on doing something good, rather than being out high on PCP and wielding a knife. Now, what we ought to be holding protests for, frankly, is Tyshawn Lee, who was a 9-year-old kid going to play basketball with some friends, who was gunned down by a couple of gangsters because they don't like his father because he's a member of another gang. Now, how about protesting that? Well, see, that doesn't make the narrative, does it? Because these are two Black guys, two monsters, two horrible monsters who brutally and coldly gunned down a 9-year-old kid. But that doesn't rank because they're not white and they're not wearing a blue uniform. So even though hundreds die every day in the inner cities across this country in Black on Black crime, that doesn't rate protest, because it only matters if it's a white cop. If it's a Black cop, it's still racist, by the way. You don't know that. There's 3 of the cops being charged now for the murder of Freddie Gray. 3 of them are Black. So I guess even when it's Black cops, it's still racist. I guess when you put on the uniform and you're Black, I guess you become white. I don't know. I don't know how this works, folks, because it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. So we are going to offer a positive, visionary, private sector plan for addressing these issues, rather than bouncing from pillar to post and responding to every bad incident that happens. We want to have a vision for what we can do to help prevent this stuff from happening, to help stop it from happening. to bring, the Bible says where there is no vision, the people perish. Bring a vision to these communities. Bring a vision to these cities that lifts people up out of the dregs and out of the despair and the hopelessness and the intergenerational cycle of poverty and pregnancy out of wedlock and dead-end living. So, folks, be praying for us. That's what we're working on. Christian awakening is what we need. And by the way, the church is essential to this, because only the church is there in the community, in the neighborhood, working with these folks. The church is absolutely the sine qua non, the indispensable factor in turning the situation around in the inner cities of this nation. And of course, the government cannot do it. The government is the one factor that needs to be kept out of the process. But we do need presidential leadership. We do need a president who's got a vision for ending this cycle of chaos. This president could have done it, but he chose not to. We need a president who has a vision for that and will provide leadership and encouragement and motivation to corporations, to churches, to others, to use the bully pulpit to say, we will not have this continue in our country. It can be solved. We as Americans can solve anything we put our minds to. And just as John Kennedy put his mind on sending a man to the moon, we're going to put our minds on ending inner city poverty and crime and drugs and chaos. And it can be done. It can be done. But it can't be done with government coming in there and pouring out more money for welfare and food stamps and all this, because all that does is perpetuate the situation. So, folks, thank you all for staying in the fight. We're certainly staying in it. We're not backing down, giving up in any way. We'll be back with you next Tuesday. Bill, who's our guest next Tuesday?
We have another congressman. It is going to be on. It is Congressman, the gentleman from Virginia, 1st District.
Bob Whitman. Rob Whitman.
Correct.
Rob Whitman. Okay. All right, folks. We'll be back with Congressman Rob Whitman next week. We're getting some of these congressmen on because we want to ask them questions and find out what their thinking is and do everything we can to encourage them to fight and let them know that we stand behind them. So hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We're back at it now. We'll see you all next Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. God bless you. And remember, we cannot be defeated if we will not quit.